Welcome in to the Illinicast. I'm your host, Austin Berkland, alongside Sonny Verma. We have another Big Ten football matchup coming up between the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Purdue Boilermakers. That game is on 2:30 on Peacock. That's right, Peacock. You will not be getting it on your typical linear TV network. It will be on the streaming service Peacock that also has The Office, Parks and Rec, WWE, English Premier League, a little bit of everything. Recommend it as well. And all the Harry Potter movies, if you're into that as well. So a lot of options for Peacock once you get it. So if the Illini game turns sour, then you can turn it to Michael Scott's shenanigans as well. But Sonny, welcome back into the show. It's great to talk to you back to back.
It's time to lock down and lock in now, Austin. It's time to see if the Illini are as good as we think we are, because the real season's about to start on Saturday.
Yes, FAU was a challenge in the first half. We went over that game in last podcast, so you can check us out there. But yes, this is when the new season begins. The first four games were kind of just crazy because of the mobile quarterback situations, just starting off the season, some new characters in new places, and some old characters in new places. So it feels like now is when you're in that second quarter of the season. You are dialed in, hopefully, and you can really showcase where you're at as a program. And this is a perfect opportunity against a Purdue team that is kind of reeling themselves.
And if you recall from our preseason episode, I said this was the most important game of the season for me. With the rivalry aspect, if you take a look at both teams' records right now, it pretty much is a must-win for both teams. And so I think there's going to be a lot riding on Saturday. I'm all ready to go.
I mean, you look at the matchup predictor on ESPN Analytics, they give Illinois a 53.1 chance of winning. So, looking at that, I have all the confidence in the world that if Illinois plays their best game, they're better than Purdue when Purdue plays their best game. Um, Maybe outside of that quarterback position, Card might be a touch better than Altmaier just in terms of pure gifts as a passer. But everywhere else, the Illinois offensive line should be better than the Purdue offensive line. The
Should.
Illinois receivers should be better than the Purdue wide receivers. And defensively, this is a defense that's kind of starting over for Purdue, and Illinois has the best player in the country, maybe not named Marvin Harrison Jr. or Caleb Williams in Jerzon Newton. So if Jerzon Newton plays really well, I think Illinois will have an easy time in winning this game. But as many philosophers have said, the best plans are set in place until you get punched in the mouth. And that's been the problem with Illinois. Once they get punched in the mouth, that's when things can get pretty dicey for them.
Yeah, we're at the point in the season where I'm no longer predicting easy victories or coasting through a game. If we weren't going to do it at FAU, I'm not just going to predict one this week. But you're exactly right. I've been watching every single one of Purdue's games just because of the extra interest involved with some of the characters over there. And right now, they're just not a good team. I wish Ryan Walters well for everything he did for our program, but the university didn't exactly leave them a very strong team this year, and their schedule is one of the worst schedules in the entire nation. So I think they were the more talented team, but I think we've been the more talented team 3 out of 4 games in our schedule this year, and we have a 2-2 record to show for it. So I'm gonna hopefully let the team do the talking before I hype them up too much in one of these episodes.
I mean, I was talking to one of our big banter brethren on the Purdue podcast, and he was saying that some Purdue fans view him as the next Daryl Hazel, which I think is completely unfair for where this program is. And I don't think the cupboard was too full for Ryan Walters. And I think he's building this program up better than many people can outside of maybe Jeff Brom. So Ryan Walters has some work to do, but I think he can get it done eventually. I think it's going to be a slower build than what maybe a Brett Bielema can do at Illinois or somebody of that situation. This is going to be more of a grassroots affair. And after this year, it's going to get rather difficult recruiting too, because the losses are going to start to be seen, and it's not as easy to sell the hope line to a 4-star defensive back after maybe winning only 3, maybe 5 games in a season.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan has been killing it on the recruiting trail. They're landing talent at levels that they really have never reached before. And I know their record says 1-3, but again, if you look at that schedule, they played Fresno, they played Virginia Tech was their one victory. But then they still have Michigan coming up, I think, and Ohio State. Uh, I mean, it's just tough. It's not a lot of teams could win more than one out of the first 4 games that Purdue had, but I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for them. This is a game that us on the Illinois side we need to win, and if that means Ryan Walters needs to go 1-4, so be it.
I mean, you're looking at this matchup and you're looking at some of the team stats, and I think some of these team stats are a little crazy looking at it. I think Illinois is a little bit more dominant than the stats show, but the stats are the stats. Total yards per game this year, Illinois has at 394.8, Purdue 397.3. So those sister programs are always sistering. I mean, you look at last year's NCAA tournament, Illinois gets eliminated in the first weekend, Purdue gets eliminated in the first weekend. I mean, these programs are just mirror images of each other, and each one of these schools wants to punch that mirror because they're like, we're so much better than this, come on now. But then you look in the mirror and they're pretty much the exact same. So uh but you look at yards allowed, 422.8 for the Illini, 404 for Purdue. But I mean, if you take in consideration the competition that Illinois has played thus far with Penn State and Kansas, who would probably win the Big Ten West, I think Illinois kind of has to be graded with a curve with these numbers. I feel like Purdue would have given up way more yards than what they've allowed with Illinois' schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted about it today that I saw a national college guy do a Big Ten power rankings, and he had Illinois at the bottom, 14. I was completely dumbfounded by it, and it just shows me that how much impact that loss that Kansas had on the national perception of Illinois football. You and I, we've been watching almost every minute of every game. We see that they're not a perfect team, but the season really hasn't been, as bad as some people are making it out to be. But again, it all changes now. We can change that perception around by taking down these Big Ten West teams one by one.
Which I think they can. I mean, these national guys can't say in the same breath, "Oh my God, I'm so excited for Kansas versus Texas. Kansas has a legit shot at upending Texas once again," and then in the same breath say, "Oh, Illinois, they lost to Kansas in that way. Oh, what a disaster of a program." I think it's just crazy that both of those statements can be said by these national analysts at the same time. So that bugs me a little bit. I think it's not giving Kansas enough credit for the program that they are whenever they demean Illinois and how they played against Kansas. Yes, it wasn't a great game, but it's not a game that is like, hey, there's so many problems with Illinois. Yes, you would like to see a better product this stage of Brett Bielema's career, but looking at it the micro sense, that game means nothing on what the potential of what Illinois is in this Big Ten West comparatively to those opponents.
Yeah, I mean, essentially turned Kansas into my second favorite football team. I'm going to be
Yeah,
rooting for week in and week out to show the country that Kansas is legit. I said before that once we played them, like they're a top 15 team when they weren't even in the top 25. But I genuinely think that the coaching that they the talent level that they have a chance to finish in the top 15, at minimum top 20. And, it's going to make the loss feel a little less, or a little more palatable. But again, we were under the national TV Friday night. Everyone was watching the game. We were down like, what, 34-7 or something like that at one point. I mean, you were at the game. So,
yeah.
so it's just, let's go Illini. I can't believe I'm saying this, but go Jayhawks.
I mean, you'll never also believe this. Toledo, their only loss to Illinois so far. They won their first MAC game 49-31 over Western Michigan. So that is opponent that just put almost a 50 burger on a MAC team. So as well, they're a current MAC team as well. I mean, it's this schedule that
And
Illinois
they had
had.
70 earlier in the season too. I think the
Yeah.
week after we played them, they pulled 70 on somebody.
Yeah, so this schedule that Illinois has faced is daunting. And again, for national analysts to put Illinois at the bottom when they played a better game against Penn State than Iowa did, just shows that they just took Luke Altmaier's 4 interceptions as gospel of what this Illinois football team is. I don't see how you can say they're 14th when you saw Jerzon Newton and that Illinois defense do what it did in normal situations, unless they were put on a very short field because of Luke Altmaier's mistakes. So I think this Illinois team is still very talented. I think this team is better than Purdue. I'm picking a close game. We'll get to our predictions at the very end of the show, but I think there is an outside shot that Illinois just blows this game out of the water. There is an outside shot of that happening. Um, I feel like the talent over Purdue is massive between Illinois and Purdue. It's just if Illinois can put it all together, which they haven't been able to showcase they have been this season.
I think, like every other game, it's all going to come down to that offensive line. If we can figure that part out, I think our playmakers are. I mean, they've got some great playmakers on their side, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it soon. The key battle. I'm going to have fun watching Card versus Altmaier. But our team all around is just a better team. Our offensive line is, made us look bad against Florida Atlantic. It's made us look bad against Toledo, Kansas. It's one of those things where we need to figure that out. And Brett and the coaching staff is harping on them that, hey, we need to fix this. Whether they're going to try new guys on the line or they're going to keep trying to readjust where these guys are playing. I think along the lines of what you were saying, if we have average offensive line play, I think we win by touchdown plus. Anything better than average, I think it can be the blowout that you referenced. If we have the same offensive line as our first 4 games, the game is a complete toss-up, and it can go either way.
Yeah, I think key matchup for me is Keith Randolph versus the offensive line of Purdue because of guys like Maccabee and Tracy Jr. and those kind of guys. Like they haven't done the best job of running between the tackles this year. They've done a lot on the outside with their speed, like with Tracy Jr. having 4 touchdowns. It just feels like that interior of the offensive line for them has struggled immensely. So there is an opportunity for Illinois to suffocate that run game and make Card beat them. And that then the key is Jerzon Newton get home. Then the key is all Gabe Yakis get home. If those guys can get home on typical passing downs like 3rd down and 10, then Illinois has a really good shot at winning this game. But if there are those 3rd down and 6s and Card just continues to get 7 yards on those passes because he either scrambles and finds a hole in that secondary, like in that last play of the first half against Kansas, or it could be that he's running for 7 yards and getting that first down with his legs. So the getting home and that interior defensive line of the Illini are going to be so huge in this game.
This is the game that we need the Brett Bielema game. We
Yep.
the second or the last 3 quarters of the last game, we kind of saw become that Brett Bielema team, sharing the ball in the backfield. We had defensive players step up. I'm hopeful that we can do to Purdue what Wisconsin did to them last week. The sooner you score, you get ahead. That team, I don't think, is good enough, and that coaching staff is still kind of green and unsure of itself. That you can cause some insecurity, you can force them to make mistakes. I want to see us grind it. I want to get 220 yards rushing combined. Let Luke make the playmaking plays he needs to, and force Hudson Card to make mistakes and have our guys step up. As you're talking about, let this be Newton's. I guess he's had plenty of coming out games, but let's just let him dominate that Big Ten. Let the Big Ten West know, what's coming up the next 6 out of 8 games.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those games where you can start penciling Jerzon Newton into that first team all Big Ten kind of caliber. If he has a game that just is a game wrecker, then other Big Ten media outlets are like, okay, this guy is who we think he was in the beginning of the year. So, and by the time the end of the season, that could be in Sharpie whenever that first team all Big Ten defensive lineman selection comes through. Another matchup I am kind of intrigued about is Deion Burks, the wide receiver of Purdue, going up against who knows with this defensive back room if Brett Bielema continues those freshmen that did so well in the second half against FAU, or if he kind of goes back to the well. I'm excited to see what the defensive back rotation looks like in this game, and I hope that he gives the freshmen a little bit more run, especially with their length being 6'3", 6'2", kind of guys going up against a 5'11" receiver. It's just, do they have the speed and do they have the IQ to deal with a player as talented as Burks?
The good news is, Brett, I think confirmed today that Nicholson should be good to go. Last week, I guess he was just sick for a little while. Maybe he had some sort of flu, and so they had to take him out because of the illness. But he should be good to go. So as long as we have that guy there, you're right. It's one of those where if the young guys can step up the way they did last weekend and fill in every now and then, that just sets up even more with having depth in the backfield to confuse Hudson Card, give them game experience, and that's also why I think, even though we haven't shown the ability to do this year, jumping out ahead and making the other team uncomfortable as opposed to vice versa is going to be so important in this game, because we get some sort of lead, let the young guys get some Big Ten experience this time, and it just makes our team better moving forward.
Yeah, I am a little worried about the fact that Ryan Walters just knows this group so well, especially the offensive line. I know there's been some changes with the quarterback, so Ryan Walters isn't too familiar with Luke Altmaier, so that's a good thing. But he knows this offensive line. He knows their weaknesses after all that time in practice. He knows the guys that he recruited as well. So that is my one concern, is the familiarity of Ryan Walters having that insane knowledge coming into this game.
Yeah, and the good thing is we kind of know Ryan Walters' defense as well, so that's vice versa. Hopefully we'll be able to pinpoint what some of the weaknesses on their side is going to be and kind of exploit.
Absolutely, that's what we need to do, and I think that's what Illinois will do in this game. But we have our guests here from Hammer and Rails. We have Drew. They had as part of the SB Nation Purdue Sports Network. Drew, how's it going? And what are your initial thoughts on this Illinois Purdue matchup?
Oh man, it's been a weird day. I'm running a little late. I'm glad I was able to jump in here at the end for y'all. I got stuck at the soccer field coaching U10 for an extra 20 minutes. That's a lot. That is a lot.
No,
But
I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I know what it's like.
oh god.
Yeah.
I've coached soccer on lots of different levels, but this is a whole new deal for me. But yeah, it's nice and down here in Athens, Georgia today. So that's where I'm located. I got out of the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. I'm heading to Athens in a couple weeks. What should I expect? Where's a good restaurant I should go to?
Oh, dude, there's so many good places here. What do you do? What's your plans in Athens? What are you coming down here for?
I'm going to the Georgia Rodeo to see Hardy perform at the
Oh,
yes, at the
yeah,
rodeo.
man. Oh God, there's so many good places here. Just really any place downtown. There's a burger place called Clock that's sort of downtown. Just Just anything downtown. There's so many good places. I even have a hard time naming them. The High-Low Lounge is real fun. I'm not a native, so it takes me. I haven't seen all the sites, but I think you're really gonna have a good time.
Absolutely. I love the Midwest sensibilities for me down there.
Yeah, it should be good. It should be good. Let me know. You got my email address. I can turn you on some other things down here. But back to this game, dude. It's like a doppelganger game, right? Like we're looking at like two teams that just can't get out of their own way and also play the exact same defense. When we were doing the podcast, the Purdue podcast for this preview, like me and my buddy Garrett, we can't figure out how this one's going to end. It could just be the like craziest, ugliest football game that like you've ever seen. Purdue, in theory, can make their offense work when it's working. It looks really good, but when it's not working, it is just like a turnover penalty machine. Like we're just handing turnovers away to anybody that wants them. So what you need to know about Purdue is they have one good quarter in them. So
Join the club on that because Luke Altmaier against Penn State threw 4 interceptions, and there's only been one game so far this season that Illinois has won the penalty battle. So again, the reflection game is just going to be so big. It's like that golden retriever that looks at itself in the mirror and keeps trying to pass it, but it just winds up booping its nose right into the mirror.
yeah, no, that's we're just going to be barking at each other, and nothing exciting is going to happen though, because God, I mean, it could be exciting. That's the thing. This could be like for a neutral fan, this could be one of those like almost like Pac-12 after dark affairs. But this time in the Midwest, where the ball's just on the ground, rolling around, and everybody's just hot jumping on it, and it's squirting all over the place, and you know, and this game could be like 41-40 or like 10-7, and like honestly, I have no idea. And I've covered Purdue. I write about lots of different football teams, and I just have no feel for this Purdue team at all. And I haven't all season. Like as soon as something looks like it's fixed, something else breaks.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the two teams are kind of sharing their ineptitude, and they have a lot more in common when it comes to obviously your new head coach Ryan Walters, who's off to a relatively rough start. Let's just be nice. How has Purdue Boiler Nation kind of embraced him quarter of the season through?
Well, like every fan base, there's about a quarter of everybody that thinks Purdue should be a national contender every season, and don't live with the rest of us in this current reality. And I'd say there's probably about half the fan base who's probably in the right places where I am is sort of wait and see. Jeff Brom left nothing behind. He like I took all the pictures off the walls, and I think they maybe took the toilets with him. Like anything that he stripped last year's team for parts. Man, that was, when he left and that Louisville job opened, I kind of went, it really kind of looked like he was selling out for one last season, the way he kind of stopped recruiting a couple years ago. So I think the last, and there's obviously, so that's probably where everybody should be is Ryan Walters, in theory, could be a good coach. Like, I've seen a lot of coaches who, in theory, could be good, absolutely suck. And I've seen coaches where I was like, what's going on? Like, why would they hire this guy, win national championships? I mean, I went to Clemson and we hired Dabo Sweeney. I was just like, we're hiring the wide receiver coach? Who is this clown? Like, how? And then but when Virginia Tech hired Fuentes, I was like, oh man, great hire. He's going to get that thing turned around. And he was just god awful. So who knows how any of these coaching things really work out unless you're going out and just getting the top tier guy. But even then, those guys, fizzle out too. So I think everybody's sort of wait and see Ryan Walters. I think people are a little frustrated maybe early on with some of his coaching decisions. I think he's playing it a lot by the book on this, when he should go for it or when he shouldn't. He's been maybe a little over aggressive at times with a team that can't, like, is much better at gaining like 7 yards than they are at gaining like a foot. And that's been a huge problem with Purdue this year. Is they look great until they need to gain a yard, and then they're just awful. Like, I've never seen a team struggle so much to go forward for 1 yard in college football with like a decent sized quarterback. Like, I don't get it. And so I think that's sort of been the main complaint. And the defense, I think people are having a hard time seeing the vision. I see the vision. I see what he's trying to do, and I feel like y'all are probably looking at the same thing with your defense this year, where you're like, I know technically what is supposed to be happening here and why this should work, but there's always like somebody breaking down and not doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, that's what's happened at Purdue. Is like, I'll watch the tape and 9 guys are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and like 1 or 2 guys aren't. And the defense doesn't work. This 5-man front doesn't work unless everybody's doing their job.
Yeah, that's been one of our issues in the first couple of games in particular. Now, you kind of referenced them earlier. Tell us a little bit about Hudson Card.
Hudson, you know, he was really good at Texas. He's had his hits and misses at Purdue. It's like when he gets into a rhythm and starts moving around the pocket and just letting the ball go, he looks good. He'll force a couple of them every game where you just kind of go, oh, God, no, just take a sack or throw it out of bounds. And he's got a really nice arm. He looked good against Wisconsin when things were going well, but Purdue would gain 30 yards and then it would just be a holding penalty every time. And so I think Card is serviceable right now with a chance to be really good later on in his career. He's got all the physical tools. I think he's got the right mental makeup. He doesn't seem like a guy that gets too down on himself. I feel like his confidence isn't shaken despite some questionable outcomes so far this year. So, I mean, he's the right guy. He's the kind of quarterback you need on a team like Purdue at the moment that struggles to block anybody. So he's a big dude. He's pretty mobile. Can take a hit, and he's taken a couple this year. And so definitely a guy that you want to keep in the pocket for the most part. I think he does better when he escapes and it gets to the perimeter where he can sort of freelance and use his physical ability to put the defense in a bind. Purdue's receivers are tiny. Like we've got one dude, Yassine, who's like decent size, 6'2", maybe 200 pounds, but Sheffield and Burks are their go-to guys, and they're both like 5'10", 5'9". Like, we were trying to make Deion Burks our like down the field receiver because we have nobody else, and he's like trying to win 50-50 balls against guys like 4 inches taller than he is. And so, I guess you'll see that a little with Isaiah Williams, I suppose, where you're just like, God, if you were just a little bigger, this would be a lot easier to get him the ball.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think Carr's done fine. He's, like I said, middle of the pack, Big Ten quarterback at the moment. Physical upside once he's been in the system a while to, be an upper tier quarterback. I assume that maybe y'all have a similar assessment of Altmaier at the moment.
What are your thoughts on the offensive line of Purdue so far?
Okay, so if y'all go to your 5-man front and get your defensive ends matched up on Purdue's guards, it's going to be a long day for the Boilermakers because we've got 2 like G5 guards who just struggle to move anybody forward and sometimes struggle to keep people from moving them backwards. And I think Newton and Richardson, Keith Richardson, is that your other guy? What's his name?
Randolph.
Randolph.
Keith
I knew it
Randolph.
was an R. Yeah, Randolph. Yeah. If those two can eat, like if you guys can get them matched up on Purdue's guards, they can do some damage. I mean, obviously Newton, is a stud, and Randolph. Oh yeah, another stud. Those are the two guys that, like, when I talk to Purdue fans about like what the defense should look like in the future, I point those your defensive ends and go, that's what you're looking for. Defensive ends that can beat guards one on one, get in the backfield, make tackles for loss, get to the quarterback. And I mean, I just look at y'all's stats from last year, and like, I've never seen two defensive ends like with that many tackles, just straight up tackles, not anything else. And so I feel like if Illinois wins this game, it's because those two guys dominate Purdue's offensive line, and Card is on the run. But y'all are probably gonna have the same. I don't know. I haven't watched all the Illinois games, but this year, even when Purdue gets good push up the middle, our outside linebackers love to run past the quarterback and just let the opposition quarterback just walk outside the pocket. Like Garrett Schrader just didn't even have to do anything other than like take 3 steps to his left and run straight. And he's still running for touchdowns. And Wisconsin did the same thing. If those outside linebackers get overly aggressive and don't stop their rush and like level off and go down the line and try to attack the quarterback, the whole defense breaks down. And I mean, that's just been Purdue's huge problem this year, is that if you put 3 guys in the middle and you have 2 guys coming off the edge, but the quarterback can just take 3 steps out of the pocket, and all of a sudden the entire strength of the defense is gone, and he doesn't have to worry about those guys coming up the middle. It's been tough. Occasionally they stay connected and the outside linebackers keep contained and the defensive line gets pushed up the middle. But that's few and far between.
So you guys start off the season obviously struggling a little bit at 1-3. You got Illinois this week. You got I think Iowa next week, and then Ohio State the following week.
Right.
How much of a must-win game is this Saturday?
I mean, it really depends on if Purdue's gonna get to 6 wins, they got to beat Illinois. Like, they got to beat Illinois. There's no other way. This is the first game that I would say, talent-wise, I think we're kind of on par. This feels like a rebuild for Illinois too, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, defense and offense, y'all kept the same coach, but I look at your roster when I was doing the preview. I mean, this is a rebuild, short of your defensive ends. Like, so much last year's offense was Chase Brown and DeVito, and that's gone. And so much of your defense was just that loaded secondary, and that's all gone. I think Purdue's sort of looking at the same thing, where you got a lot of guys out there that, in theory, they might be good, but we've yet to see it. At least consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are opportunities for these younger players for Illinois, but yeah, they need to showcase it. They need to showcase it through a full 4 quarters. We've seen it like a quarter here and a quarter there. It's just getting that going consistently. But if Purdue is to win this game, which defensive player is going to have to be the stalwart or the X factor for that to happen?
All right, so Nick Scorton is one of the offensive linebackers, and when he's on and not trying to do too much, he is very hard to block. I mean, he's a big dude. He's like 6'5", 280. He's coming off the edge. And when he does it right, when he is able to turn speed into power and really get going towards the quarterback instead of just letting the tackle just sort of usher him down the field, uh, he is a tough guy to block and can make game-changing plays.
I think what's the spread now? I know the spread has been moving around. Do you
Even.
know?
It's even. It's been like one on either side. So
So if the final result of Saturday is a Purdue victory, let's just say you're game planning Purdue. Like, how does Purdue win this game on Saturday?
Purdue wins this game on Saturday by establishing some sort of a run game early and taking some pressure off of Hudson Card and the offensive line's pass blocking. When they were running the ball against Wisconsin in the third quarter, the whole offense changed. And I mean, they put up 17 points in the third quarter because they got the run game going. And really was able to establish a rhythm. It's just Purdue just doesn't have enough on the outside and enough pass protection for Card to win it just with his arm. So I'd say if Purdue wins this game, it's because either Tyrone Tracy or Devin Mockabee goes over 100 yards rushing, and then Card keeps Purdue's offense on the field enough to win, because we don't want the defense. If the defense stays on the field too long, there's going to be a massive failure somewhere. It's against Fresno State. It was in the secondary. Against Syracuse, we couldn't tackle the quarterback. Against Wisconsin, we stopped the pass, and then they just gouged us. Like every time they handed the ball off, it was like 8-yard gain. So, like, for Purdue to win, they need the offense to dominate time of possession and establish a run game and keep the defense off the field long enough to keep Illinois from scoring that many points, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Before we let you go, give us your thoughts on Purdue basketball. I know we're getting closer to the basketball season.
Oh, man, that's like, I feel like Purdue fans are just super on edge right now. Like, so I didn't go to Purdue. I grew up a Purdue fan, but I grew up in South Carolina, and like, nobody ever got excited about Clemson basketball. But like, this feels like Purdue fans are like both excited and like really scared at the same time. And it's gonna be a long season when like everything you do leads back to, well, sure, you just won the Big Ten by 4 games, or sure, you won but nothing matters unless, once you get into March. And it's a tough way to play. Basketball is to just the entire season, you're just looking ahead to the single elimination tournament at the end. So I would say there's some trepidation, and it's just not something that Purdue is going to be able to solve until they get into March. Until then, everything good that they do is followed by, yeah, but like they lost to like a 16 seed, and they also lost to, I can't even remember all the trash teams we've lost to in the NCAA tournament. Honestly, they all run together in my head. I was live in Denver when they lost to Chris Beard and Arkansas Little Rock, and like, it's just we get into March and it's just awful.
Yeah,
What is
March
your
hasn't been kind to Illini fans either. So
Yeah. But it's really
we're
hard to talk about it,
mirror image
right?
on both sides, on basketball and football.
Yeah, and it's really hard to talk about it because like every time I want to like be like, oh, Purdue is awesome, like, and like talk smack, and then just like everybody has like the easiest comeback. It's like, oh, yeah, they're really good until it's tournament time, and then they just lose to whatever. Like, God, I can't even remember. We keep losing to teams from, I don't know, like Rhode Island or Massachusetts or somewhere. I don't even know where these teams are coming from. I guess I know where North Texas is from because it's spelled out in the but Zach Edey, returning National Player of the Year. don't get a lot of Purdue teams returning National Player of the Year, so I'm excited. This is, as far as I'm concerned, the golden era of Purdue basketball, despite their March failings. And I was a big Gene Cady fan, but he ran into the same problems. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes in March. I'd like him to play a little faster, but Matt Painter does not call for my opinions, unfortunately.
Yeah, with Illinois, it's like, Illinois had Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn, but Loyola Chicago. It's like,
Right.
oh, thanks, Sister Jean. But looking at Saturday's game, what is your final score prediction?
Like I said earlier, my buddy Garrett and I do the Purdue version of this podcast, and we went back and forth. I think we both abstained because we have been so off on like every game. Like, in often like weird ways, like we're like, this is the game the defense sucks and the offense is good, and then that's not true. That's the opposite of what happens. And or this is the game where the defense figures it out. No. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be like somewhere pick'em in like final score of both teams being somewhere between like, I don't know, 28 and mid 30s. Either way, I think it'll come down to some weird fumbles, pick six, somebody running the wrong way, or I don't know. It's gonna be chaos. I keep telling people they need to watch this game because it's gonna be chaos. And I say this, and now, as I've told you, I have yet to figure out this Purdue game. It's probably just going to be the most boring slog of a Big Ten game ever played. Now that I'm hyping it up as at least being a spectacle, but I think it's going to be a spectacle. It should be, who knows?
It's a game for the sickos.
It is. It is very much a sicko game. And I think the frustrating thing about both teams is like they're not bad. Like, you see like when it comes together and you're like, oh my God, that's it. Like I've followed some bad teams where like you get one of those glimpses every like 4 games. But like every game for Purdue, you're like, yeah. Oh, what? Wait, how did that? No, stop. But like you see it, and that's the temptation. That's the worst part. Like, if they were just straight up bad, like a Daryl Hazel Purdue team, and just getting like skull dragged across the field, I feel better about that, honestly. I know what to expect. But don't tempt me with these like 17-point quarters only to just suck the rest of the game. Guys. And like I said, I've watched some of the Illinois stuff. I've watched all of the Illinois games, and I know y'all are feeling the same way. You're like, oh, except for the Penn State game, nothing looked good in that game.
Hey, hold on. The defense looked phenomenal
That's
in normal
true. You know what?
situations.
That is true. I will give you that.
Drew Allard
we had a good 2.5 quarters.
Yeah. I'll give you that. I think the defense held up really well against Penn State. Like, it's just hard to overlook 4 interceptions and come away feeling good about anything. And again, that's sort of where Purdue's been. Like Syracuse, I think we had 7 fumbles. 7 fumbles. We recovered 4 of them, I think. Like, I don't know. Purdue will be driving down the field and just like knee the ball out of their own hands, or like drop a snap, or like just not block somebody. Like, how do you not block a defensive end? I don't know. He's standing right in front of the tackle. This wasn't a blitz. So anyways, yeah, that's where I am. Optimistic but frustrated.
We are pretty similar in that. Drew, I want to thank you for joining the Illinicast and giving the Purdue perspective on what's going to be the Sickos game of the week. We're all for certain on that.
Oh yeah. Nothing but sicko stuff here, man.
Please let our listeners know where they can find you.
I'm over at Hammer and Rails. If you get real excited about college football, I'm also on Shaking the Southland, and I get to talk about a bad Clemson team. But I am also on Bring on the Cats and get to talk about a pretty decent Kansas State team. So any of those places on SB Nation, you want to catch my podcast, it's you can come over to Hammer and Rails. I think we're like the BUDS podcast. We have our Illinois preview coming out tomorrow. So if y'all are interested in what the other side thinks, check us out.
Thank you, Drew. You have a great rest of your night, and we'll chat about this game, I'm sure, after this happens on Saturday.
Normally,
I think
I tell the guests good luck, but now that this is kind of a rivalry that's gonna be happening for the next few years, it would be disingenuous.
that's fair. That's fair. You know what? I hope that none of your players get hurt and that you lose by 30 points. And
Same.
I'll co-sign that.
all right. Well,
All right.
yeah,
See you, Drew.
y'all have a good one. Sorry about being late. Under 10 soccer, guys. It seems easy, but God,
Someone's got to do it.
I don't know why that someone was me. I don't know why I keep being that someone that always ends up having to do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew.
Peace out, y'all.
That was Drew from Hammer and Rails. And let's wrap things up, Sonny. What is your final score prediction?
You know what? I think, and I keep saying this every week, but I'm going to say this is the game Brett Bielema had circled on his calendar. First Big Ten West game. Illinois 31, Purdue 20.
I got this kind of like Drew was talking about, a low scoring slog. I am going with 17-13 Illinois beating Purdue. I just feel like both offenses haven't clicked yet to this point. I feel like both defenses are a little bit better than their offenses at this point. So I am going with a low scoring slog, but Illinois comes out on top just simply because of our ability to establish drives and have a long drive with this newfound running game of Aiden Lawfery. McCray has done a better job, and then Reggie Love the third as well. And then, of course, Luke Altmaier's legs. I want to see those in motion again, but not lead the team in rushing like he was against Kansas and Toledo. Sonny, I guess this is the beginning of the end, or see you on the other side kind of game, because this is for the canon. This is kind of where the Illinois season can completely gum off the tracks. I don't mean that pun at all, but or it just continues on, and we'll become right about our Illinois being in Indianapolis predictions.
You're exactly right. This bottom line, this is a must-win game. You know, if it's just pulling through with one or 2 points, I don't care. I no longer care about what the national perspective of Illinois football is. The season starts right now. We come out with a victory on Saturday. I'm going to be in a really good mood when we record our episode next week. If we don't, it's going to be the first time where I'm going to have to admittedly start eating a little crow and admit that this Illinois team may not be winning the 8 or the 9 in the preseason that I predicted.
Yeah, I'm gonna feel real dumb if they lose this, and I said 10-2. So I guess we'll see what happens. Time to get the cannon back. Sonny, thank you for joining me on this show, and we'll talk again next week whenever we talk about this Purdue and Illinois game.
I can't wait. You have a wonderful weekend.
All right, you do the same, Sonny.
All right, bye.